Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem, pacem. Dona nobis 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 pacem.
Good morning. My name is Mary Ellen Scanlon. I'm your service leader today, and I'd like to welcome you to the First Unitarian Church of Hamilton on behalf of the entire service team. My thanks to Rachel, Cindy, and the choir. I wanted to say that we appreciate the works that choir does because each individual records their own part at home, and then Cindy weaves it together. And so it's a bit of an effort to do their pieces. Thanks also to Tim for our story today, and to the tech team, John, Bruce, and Mary. And I'll introduce our speakers in a moment. Just a reminder that everybody's been muted until the end of the service, and that we ask that you use the chat function in private mode rather than chatting with everyone. At the end of the service, everyone who wishes to will be placed into a small group for a 20-minute get-together. And if you don't wish to be put into a breakout room, I'll let you know when to leave following the service. We are not the first people on this land, and others will follow us. The stewardship of the original peoples preserved this place for future generations. We acknowledge our connection to the web of all existence, honoring the past and preparing for the future. We commit ourselves to righting the wrongs of the past, creating respectful relationships with Indigenous peoples, and shaping a future of equal opportunity and possibility for all of our neighbors. You are welcome here, especially those who are searching for a spiritual home. Many of us were once seeking for something larger than ourselves, to which we could belong, a sense of rootedness to hold us as we create meaning together. We do that well here, though not perfectly. In this congregation, we strive not for perfection, but for authenticity and connection. Our mission is to nurture each other, serve the community, and inspire action that heals the world. Now, regular readers of Bill Johnston's UU Tuesdays articles on the history of First Unitarian will know that many of his stories are about ministers, their comings and goings, and sometimes rather colorful adventures. We are beginning yet another transition with the retirement of Reverend Victoria in June. Our speaker today is Joanne Deere, who will tell us how the congregation is preparing to welcome a new minister one day. And Elizabeth Beckett will also join us to talk about the work her team is doing during the transition period. Our opening words are by Mark Morrison Reed, who is a retired minister. Mark and his wife Donna were once co-ministers at First Unitarian in Toronto. And Mark wrote, "The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone, our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. Each time we gather, we light a chalice. It reminds us that we are entering sacred space and time together. It reminds us of our connection to Unitarian Universalists all over the world." So I will. Please join me in repeating our unison chalice lighting words. May this flame be our light of friendship and love. Our first hymn was written by a minister, Carl G. Seberg, and it talks about being a minister. Hymn 124.
Number 124, Be That Guide. Be that guide whom love sustains, rise above the daily strife, lift on high the good you find, help to heal the hurts of life. Be that helper nothing daunts, doubt a friend nor taunt a foe, ever strive for liberty, show the path that life should go. Be that builder trusting good, bitter though the test may be, through all ages they are bright, though they build in agony. Be that teacher faith directs, move beyond the old frontier, though the frightened fear that faith be tomorrow's pioneer.
Our story today not only continues with us marking Black History Month, but it also is about things lost and things found. It's called Oscar Lives Next Door, and it's a story that's inspired by Oscar Peterson's childhood, written by Bonnie Farmer and Marie LaFrance. Daddy is a Pullman porter on the railway. He is dog tired by the time he gets off the train at Windsor Station. "It's good to be home," he says softly as he lays his head on his pillow, but he doesn't fall asleep because Oscar lives next door. Just adjust my light here a little bit. Root-a-toot-toot goes Oscar's trumpet. Daddy sits up in bed. "We're moving," he says. "That Oscar roots and toots too much." Bing bang bop goes Oscar's piano. We're moving, says Daddy, pulling the pillows over his ears. That Oscar bings, bangs, and bops too much. Oscar's brothers and sisters play musical instruments too. They jam day and night. Bing, bang, bop, bap, bang, root-a-toot, toot, toot. We're moving, Daddy shouts. I can't stand this racket anymore. He shoves cotton in his ears, but nothing can drown out the music from next door. We never do move. I love listening to Oscar's lullaby long after the shuffling, scuffling noises of our neighborhood. Shush. One day, Oscar races me down Atwater Street. We run past the dress shop with its doll ladies dressed in sparkling gowns. As we sprint past the beauty parlor, where hair sizzles between the hot comb's teeth, my legs are shorter and move faster than Oscar's long legs, but he takes bigger strides than I do. He reaches the corner before me. Let's pretend to be elephants, I say. We lumber down the street, swaying our arms from side to side and bellowing. A farmer's cart rolls by on its way to the market. Nay, whinnies the horse pulling the cart. Nay, we answer back, bobbing our heads and lifting our feet high like horses. We giddy up back to the church where we play a trick on Reverend James. We bang on the church door and hide. Reverend James pokes his head out of a window. Oscar, Mildred, he calls, come out from those bushes. My heart pounds in my chest. Oscar's eyes are as big as saucers. We dash away, squealing like piglets. We don't stop running till we're back home. Oscar's laughing so hard he starts to cough. He has to bend over to catch his breath. Oscar's father calls and points to his watch. It's time for Oscar's music lesson. See you tomorrow, Oscar, I say. Oscar waves goodbye. On warm evenings, we sit on the back porch listening to neighborhood sounds. A train whistle wails in the distance. Daddy's train. That's an A and F, says Oscar. I strain to listen, but only Oscar can hear every musical note of the howling choo-choos as Daddy's train leaves the station and chugs along the canal. The trumpet is Oscar's favorite instrument. There's a genie inside, whispers Oscar. Listen. He blows a few notes, and like magic, a turbaned genie curls out of the trumpet's mouth and floats above the telephone wires. Oscar is a magician. The following Saturday morning, I wait for Oscar to race me to the corner again, but he doesn't come out. I knock on his door. Is Oscar home, I ask? Oscar's very sick, dear, replies Mrs. Peterson. He had to go to the hospital last night. It turns out Oscar has a disease with a long name, tuberculosis. Thank goodness there's a shorter way to say it, TB. Oscar has TB. The doctor says he'll get better, but it will take a long time. I hide in the hall closet. Millie, Mom calls me to supper. I squirm deeper into the closet. Mildred, what are you doing? We played a trick on Reverend James. Is that why Oscar's sick? Mom smiles, shakes her head. No, Millie, you catch TB from other people, not from making mischief. It's like a really, really bad cold. It hurts your chest and makes you cough a lot. Mama rings Mrs. Peterson's doorbell and invites her over for tea. How is Oscar? Mrs. Peterson stirs her tea for a moment, then blurts, he won't talk. We can't get a peep out of him. He refuses to talk. The nurses are beside themselves. His father thinks he needs a good spanking. What shall we do? I'm at the end of my rope. I can't visit him in the hospital, so I make Oscar a card. Dear Oscar, the trick we played on Reverend James did not make you sick. Get better and come home soon. Love, Millie. XOXOXOXO. I draw a picture on the envelope and seal it. Mom and I trudge up the hill to the children's hospital and give it to the nurse at the front desk. You'll be thankful for a kind gesture from a friend, she says. I wait a long, lonesome time for Oscar to get better. One morning, Mom hands me a letter with musical notes doodled all over the envelope. Dear Millie, I got a tractor. It's red and silver and big as a house. The nurses gave it to me because I'm so quiet. I like it here now. I was scared and lonely before. I wish you were here too. Oscar, XO. Not long afterwards, Mrs. Peterson tells Mom that Oscar's talking and laughing again. He's back to his old self, she says, and I'm glad. Spring breezes blow fat bellies onto Mama's washing, and Oscar's still in the hospital. At nighttime, I toss and turn. Without Oscar's lullaby, I can't fall asleep. I tiptoe into the living room where Daddy listens to the radio, and I curl up on the carpet like a cat. Soft jazz plays through the radio's carved wooden panel. I believe Daddy misses Oscar too. When Daddy falls asleep, I wander out to the back porch. A light is on at Oscar's. I peek through the kitchen window and see him hunched over the piano. His fingers tickle the keys while the radio purrs smoky rhythms. Oscar is home. The next day, Oscar stands on the back porch holding his trumpet. He puts it to his mouth and gently presses the keys, but no sound comes out. Daddy and I watch as Oscar takes apart his horn, bit by bit, piece by piece. I want to see where the magic comes from. He pokes a finger inside the brass tubes. He looks through one end like a ship's captain. Pretty soon, the floor is cluttered with shiny valves and tubes that he can't put back together. Oscar looks like he might cry. Daddy tells me that Oscar's lungs are no longer strong enough to blow into a horn. Daddy tips his porter cats and kisses me goodbye. When I get back to Montreal, I want to see smiles on both your faces. I sit beside Oscar on the porch. Warm rain pitter-patters on Oscar's scattered horn. I pick up one of the shiny tubes. Maybe there's a genie in the piano, too. We stand on chairs, open the top of the piano, and gaze inside. Rows of little wooden hammers wearing felt hats run from one side of the piano to the other. Bands of wires stand at attention in front of the hammers. We take turns playing key and watching the little hammer strike the wire. Oscar sits at the piano. His fingers pause over the keys, and for a moment before playing, when they finally touch the keyboard, it sounds like rolling thunder. His father hires a piano teacher, and Oscar practices. We don't have much time to play anymore, but we still love to sit on the back porch. Tonight, Mama has a treat for Oscar and me, but it's not really ready yet. We watch the sun set while the jazz music bubbles up from a dance club. I'm going to be an explorer, says Oscar. I'm going to be a ballerina, I say. We daydream while Mama's cornbread cools on the windowsill. And that's the end of our story today.
In these moments of contemplation, I invite you to relax, close your eyes if you like, and breathe deeply. Following the words, there will be a few moments of silence, followed by music. This morning's reading is The Life That Stretches Between Us by Reverend M.A. Belcher. Let us take a moment to settle into the silence. Hear and feel your quiet breathing. Hear and feel the quiet of your room and this community of quiet people. As we sit in the quiet, feel the life that stretches between us, that fills our rooms. Feel the opening of all the windows of our beings and the full outstretching of our spirits as we reach outward to the life around us, beyond our room, throughout all creation. For this life, for the freedom we have to shape and pursue our lives, we are grateful and rejoice. Blessed be.
Dhanyavad, 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 Ananda. Dhanyavad, dhanyavad. Dhanyavad, Dhanyavad, Dhanyavad Ananda. 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 Dhanyavad, Dhanyavad, Dhanyavad Ananda.
This morning's homily is going to be a little different from the usual, as we have been reminded, as individuals have been sharing their thoughts about Reverend Victoria over the last few Sundays. Our Reverend's time is coming to a close. February's theme of love and loss, and this morning's theme of lost and found, and questions from you, especially if you are new to our church, about what's going on and what is an interim minister. This prompted Mary Ellen and I to choose this Sunday to fill you in on the process of searching for an interim minister and letting you in on who they are, what do they do, and how do we get one. To those of you who don't know me, I'm Joanne Deere, and I am currently serving along with Mary Solig, Dale Shipley, and Gail Rappold as your interim minister search task force. Mary, Dale, and Gail, whatever screen you're on, maybe you will wave your hand so people will know who you are. This morning, I'm going to endeavor to give you a very abridged version of the task that we are charged with. But before we look to the future, I would like to linger in the present for a while. Reverend Victoria came to us after our church had gone through a very difficult period, and she will have shared her gift of love with us for 11 years when she retires at the end of July. Along with her ministerial training and experience, Victoria also brought skills from her time in the corporate world in organizational development. And she used all these skills to support our continuing healing and hard work with a sense of humor and a compassionate nature. We are so blessed to be celebrating the ending of her ministry as a happy occasion. We need to celebrate her time with us fully. Tell her how we feel about her. Send her notes. Let her know how she has helped us. Share a memory and join in the send-off that the Victoria Ingram send-off team is preparing. Because with a good celebration comes a good goodbye. Not necessarily easy, but loss can be eased if there are no regrets. There is no doubt that some of you will grieve her loss and others will feel fear about our unknown future. Suddenly, our church home is no longer as it was. In these moments of transition, we need ministry the most. And this is where the interim minister fills a role. The practice of hiring an interim minister following a ministerial departure is common practice in Canada and the US. And it is highly recommended that the interim period span 2 years. Interim ministers are trained by the Unitarian Universalist Association, more commonly known as the UUA. And our search team works closely with the UUA transitions team in our search for an appropriate candidate. This interim period provides the breathing space during which a congregation can review its goals, assess its programs, and consider the quality of its life in common. The interim is not a replacement for our minister, but rather is more like a mirror, reflecting the congregation back on itself. This time for authentic self-reflection is the gift that the interim period provides for us as a congregation. And it is so important that we take advantage of this time, joining with our younger and newer members, as well as our wise elderly, so everyone is heard. Interim ministers enjoy the challenge of coming into a congregation, being a diagnostician, feeling out what's working well, and what are the strengths that need to be built on. They have studied how to have us examine our past and to heal any outstanding issues. They are consultants who help us take a hard look at where we want to go in the future. Referring back to the words of Mark Morrison Reed that Mary Ellen read earlier, while we work together with our interim, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. The interim period and the congregation's work with an interim are vitally important to our successful transition to a new permanent, or as they are better known, settled minister. As stated in the UUA Transitional Ministry Guidelines, the work we do with our interim will result in the new called minister finding a congregation to be a moving train instead of a stalled bus waiting for a driver. During the interim period, the board will also strike a search team to find us a new settled minister. And this is another very important but restricted role of the interim. I enjoyed reading the description of this role by one interim minister who wrote, "It's like being a blind cyclist at the after end of a tandem bike. I can pedal, but I can't steer." The interim can give advice if invited to do so, can bring matters to the attention of the team if it is considered relevant, and can offer pastoral care during what can be an anxious and stressful time, even though it is change that we will have hoped for so eagerly and prepared for during the 2 years that the interim is supporting us. Irene Laurie gave us fair warning in an announcement she wrote about the interim minister a few months ago. Don't fall in love. There are rules that the interim must follow. They may not become a candidate for our settled minister position, and they may not comment on any of the candidates who aspire to serve as our settled minister. I should also mention at this point another rule that applies to Reverend Victoria. She is asked not to attend our services until the interim period and 1 year with our permanent new minister is over. However, don't worry, if you see her in a grocery store, you are allowed to have a chat with her. So now let's take a short look at what the Interim Minister Search Task Force has been charged to do by the board. The board is responsible for getting volunteers to form the task force, and once found, the task force then works with our consultant, Keith Crone, who leads the transition team of the Unitarian Universalist Association, or UUA. A package of information about our church that each candidate receives will be virtually presented through our website. And we were very lucky to have our website in really good shape. Although committees, teams, task force, etc., have been involved and looking at their information on the website, and in some cases doing updates. Bruce McPherson then created a table of contents, so to speak, of links that can take the interim candidates quickly to the source of information that is of interest to them. And our task force wants to thank Bruce for his support in doing this job for us. The president of the board will write an introductory letter for the package, which will highlight what we have learned, created, tried, and succeeded at over the last 11 years, and where we will need help over the 2-year interim period. The Canadian Unitarian Council, or CUC, will conduct exit interviews with Reverend Victoria and the board, and these reports will be shared with the UUA as they prove helpful when looking for a settled minister. After reading the documents of information created by the task force about our congregation and the systems and structure that we are currently working under, as well as digesting the information we are filling out with the board on a very detailed application portal, Keith Crone will send us up to 8 interim candidates whom he deems a good match with our congregation. The task force then chooses who they will interview, checks out references, and eventually forwards to the board a recommendation for the candidate to be hired. This happens in a very short period of time. All of our information needs to be into the UUA by April 15th. We will receive names of interested interim minister candidates on May 1st or 2nd, and by May 12th, congregations in round 1 may make an offer. There are 3 rounds of interviews, with the last one being May 29th. We, of course, are hoping to find our match during the first round. One major difference between the interim search and a settled minister search is that the congregation is not involved in voting the interim candidate choice. The interim search involves the task force assisting the board with making a hiring decision, whereas the team searching for a settled or permanent minister works more closely with the congregation, who will eventually vote on the candidate to be hired. What will happen if we are still under some type of COVID restrictions in August is anyone's guess. However, there are currently interim ministers working virtually with the congregations who have hired them. Hopefully, I've given you enough information to understand the process our task force is involved in. However, if you still have more questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with Mary, Dale, Gail, or I, or of course, the board members. Thank you. This is a lot of information to take in. And now, Elizabeth, it's your turn.
Good morning. I want to introduce the congregation to the Segue team. Actually, when I wrote and asked my daughter Juliana to do this visual, I had spelled segue with a Q. So all you dyslexics in the congregation, you can feel right at home, but it's a G, not a Q. My mother had an expression, there's many a slip between the cup and the lip. sadly, she said that when I told her I was engaged, but it is good to have a backup plan, like a plan B. And the Segway team, composed of Kathy Brown, me, and Barbara Wallace, are your plan B. We are committed to making a smooth transition, like a segue from our current ministry into our new ministry. But given the uncertainty of the time, we wanted to assure the congregation that we do have this group, Kathy, Barb, and I, who are maintaining the most important things that happen in our congregation. We are working to assure that there is always a worship service. Thankfully, Mary Ellen Scanlon has taken care of that to a great extent, so that there's always a worship service every Sunday, that our caring protocols will maintain themselves, and we will still be here as a congregation to care for each other. And if there's any significant sad events, the congregation will still be here to support any family members. We were also be assured that our money situation is continuing to flow easily. Our building is maintained. All of this work is currently being done very, very ably by the huge number of volunteers. But the minister provides important oversight to all of these systems within the church. And the Segway team is committed to performing that, that part of the minister's job until our new minister is fully in place, which, we really hope that the new minister will be in place. Like, it would be great if the new minister was in place on July 1st, Canada Day. But if it turns out that there are issues or barriers that have to be overcome, and the minister is not able to begin their journey with us until August or until September, the Segway team is there and making sure that there is this smooth path. You see that nice wooden path that we're walking on. So if you have any concerns at all, do not mull them over at 2:00 in the morning. Drop an email to Segway with a G at uuhamilton.ca, and our team will be glad to address your concerns. So thank you very much. It sounds like our interim minister team is working really hard. So maybe the Segway team will have nothing to do. Thank you, Joanne.
Number 345, with joy we claim the growing light. With joy we claim the growing light, advancing thought and widening view, the larger freedom, clearer sight, which from the old unfold the new. With wider view come loftier goal, with fuller light, more good to see. With freedom, truer self-control, with knowledge, deeper reverence be.
As we prepare to extinguish our chalice, I'll share with you some closing words. And these words are by the wonderful Cicely Tyson, who died last month at the age of 97. She said, "If each person in this world would simply take a small piece of this huge thing, this amazing quilt, and work it regardless of the color of the yarn, we will have harmony on this planet.